It turned out that Bob's hunch was on the money, and Herb's technology certainly did have commercial applications. Genentech became the first company to make a recombinant protein, which was human insulin, the first company to produce a biologic drug to treat cancer, the first to develop a targeted therapy to treat cancer, and on and on. As of last week, Genentech was, by market cap, the largest biotechnology company in the world and the #1 provider of cancer medicines in the United States. Most importantly, Genentech medicines have improved or extended the lives of millions of patients. And Bob Swanson passed away from brain cancer about 10 years ago, and just yesterday, the FDA made a unanimous recommendation by their advisory committee to approve Avastin for the treatment of brain cancer, something that many of us who knew Bob consider a great, great day. So with that track record, to say Genentech was and is an innovator would be an understatement. How did that happen? What was the secret sauce? I think it was the ability that Herb and Bob and Art had, and one they share with Thomas Edison and all the great innovators, and that is the ability to dream big dreams and then go after them with all the determination and the ambition you can muster. So as Sue showed you, embarrassingly, I like the blue glasses. Luckily, they didn't show up that well in the picture. I've known I wanted to be a doctor since I was a little girl. Although my sister Teresa points out in that picture that I was pointing out, look, I wanted to be a doctor. And she points out, look, you were bossing people around. That's the real me. My dad is one of the great people on earth. It's not just that he was a pharmacist, but if you wanted to talk about something that you were worried about, you'd go to my dad. You'd go to the side door of the pharmacy for the real consultation. And so all the discussion about what you could do if you could use science and medicine and analytics to help people was what I grew up with. So I would hang around the drugstore and watch my dad in action, and I thought that was a great thing to do. So I wanted to go to medical school, and luckily I did like science and math and had the grades to get to medical school. So I was fortunate and was able to achieve a dream. I would have been very happy to have been a family doctor, a community physician. I enjoyed practicing medical oncology very, very much. But that's not the way it turned out, because something took me from that to wanting more, to wanting to dream big dreams, and the kind of dreams that you need to make innovation flourish. To ask the question, why not? Why can't we do that? And so I thought I'd just point out 3 things that matter to me in terms of thinking about innovation that have helped me make that leap from wanting to make something happen to participating in making something happen. First, don't be worried about taking a risk. I think the best things that ever happen are those that you know if it goes well, it'll matter a lot, and if it doesn't go well, you're going to look kind of stupid or be a goat. And I would point out that when Sue showed that slide and showed Avastin, that now people talk about could potentially be not just the biggest cancer drug in the world, but the biggest drug in the world. When we first started working on Avastin, the first clinical trial we did was in very late stage breast cancer. And it would have been a very quick path to the marketplace and to commercialization for this first ever anti-angiogenic. And the trial failed. It was a good try, but the patients were, we think, too sick to benefit from Avastin. It was too late to help them. And when the trial failed, the stock dropped, people despaired, and I was spending a lot of the company's precious R&D money on the next trials of Avastin. And we really had to take stock. Were we chasing something that would never come true? And the risk of putting all the company's money at risk for now what is at least 10 additional cancers is today paying off, and we look very clever. But at the time was enormous risk that we would be wrong and had gone too boldly before we knew that this would be an important way to help cancer patients. So taking risk is essential. The second thing that I would say, and I think this has been true for me and I suspect for many of you, don't underestimate yourself. When I first came to Genentech, having had the eclectic career that you just heard about, I humbly went to my first interview with Dennis Henner, who's a PhD scientist who at that time headed research. And I went into Dennis's office and I said, listen, Dennis, I want to lay all my cards on the table. I have to tell you, I'm not a molecular biologist. I've never been in the lab. That's not what I do. I'm more of a thinker, a clinical trials person. I'm a regular doctor. And Dennis pointed to the buildings where research is run in South San Francisco, and he said, Sue, I've got buildings full of molecular biologists. I don't need another one of those. I need some help from a physician who can help me translate that great molecular biology into medicines for patients. And now I sort of laugh at that conversation, but I thought, gosh, I wonder if I'll fit in here. I'm not a scientist who uses recombinant DNA technology. And I like to tell my colleagues in research about my favorite animal, a human being. And bringing that to the table mattered and matters today. So don't underestimate what you bring to the table. So the famous Thomas Edison quote of 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration brings me to the third thing you need to do to make the leap from dreaming to innovating. Be relentless. Herceptin is a drug that is now famous for helping breast cancer patients. Herceptin can double the chances that a woman who's diagnosed with breast cancer, with the most difficult form of breast cancer, will stay in remission. When I moved from Bristol Myers to Genentech, my friend said, oh, you're going to that crazy company who's trying to make an antibody to treat cancer. No one can do that. That's audacious. Many, many times during the development of Herceptin, we thought we wouldn't get it done. We nearly didn't enroll the first trial. We didn't have a diagnostic ready for commercialization. The twists and turns that molecule took on its way to becoming what's now a seminal drug in the area of personalized medicine. Every step along the way, I kept thinking of those patients who I saw in practice, who I had to have that dreadful conversation. You have the scariest form of breast cancer. And now you can say you have the scariest form of breast cancer and Genentech makes something that can help you. So the relentlessness to make life better for patients is driving what I do and my colleagues at Genentech do to make a difference and to innovate. So talking about the power of dreams today, I want to close by saying that in my field of medicine, there's never been a better time to be a dreamer. And despite what you hear about all the despair about healthcare, it's a fantastic time to be in healthcare and to be a scientist who loves innovation. I'll freely admit, if you haven't figured that out already, that I'm an optimist. A few years ago, somebody who wrote a story where they interviewed me called me a chronic believer. I think that's a good thing. I was a little puzzled when I read that, but now I've decided that's a good thing to be a chronic believer. But mine is not an optimism that is based on some dreaminess of false hopes and false hunches, but data. I'm data-driven and hope and expect things will be better in the future because it's about the science and the progress that we've made in our understanding of human biology and the human genome and what that allows us to do. I think we're at the midst of a real revolution in medicine and on the cusp of doing important things, not just for patients, but for human beings who would rather avoid diseases in their future. This is a revolution that even Thomas Edison would appreciate. So finally, I want to point out two things to you. One, that I'm happy to be joined by some of my colleagues from Genentech here today. I'm always uncomfortable to be singled out. I love Edison's focus on teams because everything we do at Genentech is based on teamwork and the power of all these people pointed in the same directions. So let me end with my very favorite Thomas Edison quote that hopefully is as inspirational to you as it is to me. If we all did the things we are capable of, we would literally astound ourselves.